Hmm. Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Now I'm broadcasting from my studio in Chesapeake, Virginia, to the USA and all around the world. And I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And I'm in the studio today with my wife, Gloria.
Welcome, everyone.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and checking on the chat room. I'll put the chat room on now. I'm going to... The chat room's live, so if you have any questions or comments during the program, just write them down in the chat room, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Today I'm going to do a painting, and it's called the Rocky Coastline. And it's going to have rocks and water and some sky, big sky. And I've always liked the seascapes, so that's what I'm going to do today as a final show for 2022. New Year's Eve is coming up soon. So let's go to my paint table and let's get started. Let me get this over here. Yeah, hi, Mr. Emmanuel. Good to see you. Now, welcome to the show. Okay, this is my reference photograph. You can see here I've got large sky and lots of water. I love this coastline. I got the rocks over here, and I got trees, and I got some sailboats in the water. So we're gonna have a good time painting this. And so you can do a paint along. What I've got here is along with my supplies. Let's go over those real quickly. I'm going to be using for the sky and water. I'm going to be using Cerulean blue, Cobalt blue, and Ultramarine blue. Those are the three main blues I'm using in the painting today. And in the tree line, I'm going to use Hooker's green and green number 1, a little lighter green. And then for the rocks, I'm going to be using yellow ochre and burnt sienna, and maybe some ultramarine mixed in there. I'll be using the Silver Brush Hake brushes to do the big sky and the water. And I'm using Holbein watercolors, and I'll be using Holbein water brushes also for the rocks and so forth. So all these items here are on my website, everettswatercolors.com. And in order to find the live broadcasts, you go to my website, and you go to the live classroom, which is on the left-hand side of the navigation on my website, navigation bar on the left, and look at live classroom 2023, and you'll see the retake of the video today. And for the paint along, I have links there just below my photograph, just below my picture on the left. There's a paint along links where you can go to my Fun with Facebook and get the downloaded photograph and drawing, and also you can get the link to my paint along with Everett on Everett's Watercolors on my Facebook page. So that's the information on today. Oh, what I did now, I took the photograph, and I did a quick drawing. This is a drawing. It's in my website. So that's the design drawing. Shows the main elements of the coastline, the rocks, and the tree line. Okay, I'll put that aside. So the photograph and the drawing are on my website, where I showed you the links. Then I did okay. What I've been doing here is I took the sketch and I did a color study. I did a value study. I always do that on all my paintings. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use the darks in the background, be some dark shadows here in the rocks. So that's the dark. Most of the other area, the sky and the water are going to be, and the rocks. Well, the sky and the water will be the light value, and the rocks will be like a medium value. So I got light, medium, and dark values, and that's my painting plan right there. That's my painting plan. I always use my value study to get me started. Okay, let me put this over here over to the side where I can look at it. Okay, then I've transferred the drawing to a quarter sheet of Gemini watercolor paper, 140-pound cold press, and you can see the drawing on there. I got the drawing on the watercolor board. So there's my painting board. I got my paints ready to go. My Hake brushes. This is a Silver Brush large Hake, and I got the large Silver Brush small Hake. Those are the two I'm going to be using for the water and the sky today. Okay, and I've also got the brushes here from Holbein. I've got the 1/2 inch flat brush from Holbein. I've also got the 3/4 inch. And for any detail I may use, I've got the number 8 round Holbein. These are synthetic brushes. And they're on my website also. Oh, I see Corrine. Green, thank you. See you. Say hello to you too. Good to see you. All right. So first thing I'm going to do.
Mr. Morrow, is it? I can't read it from here.
Oh yeah, I see. Ishimaro Imashu. I'm sorry about the pronunciation of your name. I see 3, and I see Corrine, so I see 3. Okay. There's probably more on Facebook. Okay. First thing I'll do is take clean water. And I'm going to go across here, and I'm going to re-wet the sky. Just pre-wet the sky a little bit. So the sky will be a wet on wet technique. Take it right on down to the water line, and I'll pick up the excess water. Just want to dampen the paper, so that the water will flow, so that the paint will flow very smoothly. Okay, so. Okay. All right, the paper's wet. Now, while it's wet, I'm going to go ahead and mix up some, this is ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue first. That's my top of the sky will be a little darker. So I'll start with ultramarine blue over here on the side. And go up here at the top, a little more. Checking the value there, get a little darker. They'll come down about 1/3 of the way there in the sky. I'll get just a little bit darker up there. So put a little more pigment in the brush. Go across one more time. This Hake brush really holds lots of water and paint, so it really spreads the paint very nicely. Okay. All right, now I'm going to pick up a little bit of Cobalt blue. And then I'll overlap that brush stroke with ultramarine, come down with a cobalt blue down to here. And I think I'll go back and get a little more ultramarine. While the paint is still wet, you can go back and add more pigment, and you have a chance to put in a little more color. I always recommend once you get into the sky, is not mess around too much. Get that paint in there, and then let it dry. Okay, and right down here at the base here now, just before we get to the water, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow ochre. Just a little bit of warmth. So let me pick up my brush here. I'm washing out the brush because I'm changing paint. Washing out the brush. Pick up a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to come in here across the horizon line here. A little warmth there in the sky, just a little bit of warmth. Bring it down across there, okay? Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and dry that. I see some water drops up here got in the sky. What will happen is when you bring the brush from the bucket, let me take a little ultramarine back up here. I'm going to do one more swap. I could actually make a cloud out of it if I wanted to. I may do that. The sky is still wet, so I'm able to put some more pigment on there. Okay, that's fine. Now I think what I'll do though, while before it dries completely, I think I'm going to put a few clouds up there. So I'm going to take a tissue. I'm going to make a couple tissue clouds just for fun. So you take a tissue and you fold it up, roll it up a little bit, and you pick some spots that you want to get started. You roll it up tight like this, and then you come in here and you just press it down into the wet paper, and that'll pick up the pigment. That'll pick up the watercolor and make some nice light color. I'll come down here, make another one. Change the position. Make sure you got a clean. Pick up another one. Make sure you get a clean spot on the tissue. Wrap it up again. Get another one down, a smaller one. Put smaller ones down along the horizon. And put a few clouds in there. Okay. Okay, that's enough of that. So those are called they're called tissue clouds. Just taking a clean tissue, go across there and pick up the paint. All right, let me dry that just real quickly, just before I put it in the water. So we've added the blue in the sky with ultramarine blue, a little bit of cobalt blue, and then a little bit of yellow ochre here at the horizon line. And then I went in with the Kleenex and made a couple clouds, snow clouds. Okay. Because the composition, well, it's an L composition, but if I've got a lot of action going down here, I need a little bit of action here up in the sky. So if I got rocks and water down here, movement, then I want to put something in the sky instead of all blue. So that's why I put the clouds in there to unify the scene with the sky and the water. Okay. All right. Now we're going to put the water in, and I'm going to start with the light color first. So I'll pick up a little bit of this cerulean blue, just a little bit of cerulean blue. And before I do that, I'm going to wet the water. So I'll take a clean brush. This is a large hake brush. And I'm going to put a little bit of water in here. Now I'm wetting the water area. Okay, take out the extra water. Now I'm going to take out the excess. I don't want too much. I don't want it to be too wet. So I just want to make it damp. Across there. All right, almost done with the hake brush. So I'm going to start out with a light color. I'm going to start out with the cerulean blue. And I'm going to go up here next to the horizon with the light blue. Right up here. As I come forward, I get a little darker. I'll pick up the cobalt blue. Get a little bit darker as I come forward. I'm basically painting around the rocks. Some of them will be darker anyway, so it's really not going to matter too much. And then here in the foreground, are going to be ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue is my darkest blue. I'll put this down here in the foreground. Okay. Yeah, just out the brush a little bit. I'm going to blend this. I'll blend those two together. And blend this together up here. Rinse out the brush. Do a little blending. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of this color here off the rock. So I'll take a tissue and pick up some of the color. I want to save some of those whites on top of the rocks. So I'll come in here and hit that just a little bit. Pick that up. Okay. All right. Now I'll go ahead and dry the water now. So we added the same blue color we did the sky. I started with cerulean blue at the horizon line and moved forward with cobalt blue and ultramarine down here at the bottom. The color of the sky will be reflected in the water. And so the darker area in the foreground matches the top of the sky, which is darker. I may take a thirsty brush here and put some lines across here. And show a little bit of movement. I'm taking the 3/4 inch brush now and making some lines across the water to show a little bit of movement.
You have a question? Can you define thirsty brush?
Let me see.
Your question? Can you define thirsty brush?
Thirsty brush. A thirsty brush is a brush that's dry. I moisten it up a little bit to get the brush working, but then I want to, like what I do is I squeeze out the excess water in a towel, and now I just have a damp brush. And when I go down to say a wet surface here on the paper, and I touch the wet paper, then the brush will pick up that paint, and that's why I call it a thirsty brush. It picks up the paint off the painting. It gives a little movement. It gives a little bit of movement here in the water. I'm just kind of moving around some of that color a little bit. Okay. All right. Let me finish drying the water. That was a good question. Okay, now remember this. I'm looking at my value plan that the light areas were the sky and the water. So I put in all the light areas. Now I'm going to go in and put in some of the middle values. I think what I'll do is go ahead and start with the rocks along the coastline here. So what I'll do is I'll mix up. I don't need a Hakes anymore. I think I'll use the 3/4 brush. I'm going to mix up a little bit of rock color. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of Burnt Sienna mixed in with yellow ochre. That'll give me a light brown. And then what I want to do is also have a little darker area. So I'll pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue, and I'll come down and have a darker mix of that same color, which is a dark brown. So I have a little bit of a medium value between brown and dark brown. So what I'm going to do now is just take that lighter color. I'm going to go up here across this area. The rocks run up here in this section. So I'm going to have the lighter value here. The sun's coming from this direction, from watching the water coming off of my bucket over here. Sometimes it'll drip on the painting, so you have to be very diligent and alert what's going on in the painting. If you see water dropping on your painting, you got to do something with it, or go back and fix it. So I'm putting in a middle value here of burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow ochre, mixed in with a slight little bit of ultramarine blue. A mixture of a light and a dark, which will give me like a medium value. Okay. Now I want to go ahead now and pick up same colors. I'm going to paint the whole rock area here. This here I'm going to pick up a little more of the burnt sienna and yellow ochre here. I want a lighter value on this side. As I'm moving toward the sun, I want to get a little bit lighter. So I'm using a 3/4 inch flat natural hair brush from Holbein, and I'm using Holbein's Artist Watercolors, which is all available on my website, everettswatercolors.com. Yeah, putting in this medium value here for the rocks. I'm using the same color across there. We'll go back when I put the shadows in, and I also wanted to do some techniques up here. I'm going to put in some darker mixes up here in this rocks, give them a little value change here and there. I'm using a corner of the brush. I'm using the side of the brush, end of the brush, using all parts of the 3/4 inch flat brush. Using a corner for a little small area. Then as I go further down, I use the flat part of the brush. So a flat brush is very versatile in painting. You can use the brush in a lot of directions, loaded with paint. And the flat brush is probably my favorite brush to use. I use the round brushes too, but the flat brush can do a lot of detail work on the corners.
Manuel is asking about what brush he can use apart from the thirsty brush, so you might want to go over that again.
Do what? What kind of brush?
What kind of brush can I use apart from the thirsty brush?
Oh, well, the thirsty brush is just any brush that doesn't have moisture in it. It should be a moist brush, a damp brush. But you can use a round brush, you can use a flat brush, whatever brush you're using. But the thirsty brush is just a brush that doesn't have any paint or water in it. It's just damp. And what that does, it picks up whatever paint you're off the painting. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is take find it here. There it is. No, here it is. I'm going to use a credit card now. This is the credit card I just cut up in pieces of it. And I'm going to go in and scrape out a little bit of texture on these rocks. And what that'll do is it'll give it some marks over here. So, and that's what I want it to do before the paint dries. I'm using the corner of the credit card, using the side of the credit card. Okay. Okay, so a credit card can be used to scrape the paint to give it a little texture. And I want a little texture look here in the rock area. Okay, I think what I can do now, let me finish off this foreground here, right in this section. I'll use a little bit of this mixture I have down here of burnt sienna and yellow ochre. So these are smaller rocks and a sand down here along the edge of the water. So I'll just go ahead and put that in. Okay. And I'll pick up some dark blue, which is ultramarine blue. I want to go in here and put it in little, mix that with a little bit of burnt sienna. I want a darker brown. So I'm going to put that scatter of light rocks, small rocks down here at the bottom. Just give it, it's just a hint or an indication that there's smaller rocks down here. There's one rock here I want to keep light. Okay. Okay, that can dry, and then what I'll do is let me work on the background trees here. I can also, yeah, I want to put a little bit of, I want to put a little hint. I'm going to use this number, now I'm going to use a number 6 round, and I'm just going to use a very little of it, little bit of it, and I'm going to put a little shoreline here, a little bit of rocks along this edge. I'm going to use the smaller brush here. To indicate some rocks along the edge of the water, up out here to the end point here. Okay. All right, now I'm going to mix up. That was the number 8 round. The number 8 round I had was number 8 round synthetic brush from Holbein. This is the 1/2 inch. This is a smaller brush. I'm going to use to paint. I'm going to paint the trees up here. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of green number 1. And I never use the, I don't like to use the pure pigment out of the palette. It's too bland, it's too bright. So what I'll do is I'll take this yellow and I'll mix a little bit of cerulean in with it, just to give it a little bit of cobalt blue maybe, all right? Because I just want to give it I want a light green, but I don't want it so light green like, all right, I'm going to put some greenery in here on the background. Over here. Okay, then I'm going to pick up a darker green mix, which is I'll use Hooker's green. I'll mix that in with ultramarine blue. So I'm mixing Hooker's green and ultramarine blue to give me a dark green. Because this is my darkest value in the painting. These are those background trees, evergreens. They're probably pine trees in the background. I think this coastline that I'm painting here is very similar to coastline in Maine. It doesn't matter where it is, but I think it looks like that's what the landscape looks like. The seascapes along Maine, the rocky coast with trees and lots of water and sailboats, fishing boats. There's a little white building out here. I'm going to save that as my point of interest. So this painting, I'm designing it as I go along, but I'm putting the darkest values here next to the lightest value. there's a light sky, but the area of interest here is going to be around this section right here. So take a little more time, a little more detail. And there's like I said, a little white building here. That'll be a part of the point of interest, or area of interest, focal point. They call it focal point, area of interest. Several names for the same thing. But it's an area where you want the viewer's eye to go to. That's the whole key. So you have something, you have a little story here about what you're trying to paint. And I like this. I like the seascape here. I like the view, the scenery. And then with the little house there, could be a little boathouse. It could be someone lives out here. It could be a vacation home. Got a good view of the ocean, though. Good view of the ocean. A nice place to park a boat. And a lot of people do that. They're used to living that way. It's fine. Some people grow up in that area, and they go back and live there. So that's so I'm putting a darker value back here in the background. I might go back and even put darker, but I want to get the main shapes going here. Yeah, your art. Whenever you do an art piece, whether it's any kind of painting, tell a story. The art is telling a story, and you should have a feeling about what you're painting, why you're painting it. And I like the ocean. I like the water, and of course anywhere here that has boats, and then you got the rocky coast. And of course, these evergreen trees. I mean, it's just a nice place to visit, and brings back some memories of things that I've seen along the coastline. And also, I'm building a direction here. See, the trees get a little smaller as we go towards. So we got a direction arrow here marked by these trees. They get a little bit smaller as we go down toward the focal point. And as I go back here, and also I'm going to be building a little more contrast along the edges of these rocks. And that's where I'll pick up some more of that blue. What I'll do is I want to build some contrast here between the background and the middle ground here. The middle ground is these rocks, so I'm going to bring in some little darker background here behind these rocks and make them come out. So that I could interpret that as maybe a shadow going down there from the sun behind those trees. I'm putting and I also want the painting to show that we have rocks down there and separate from the trees. I don't want the same values. I want a different value. Of course, a different color here, with the green and the versus the brown, light brown. Okay, and always thinking about, I'll come back with a second layer in some, not a second, but a second layer in some areas to really emphasize what I want to do. But right now I'm putting in the first layer of color. Now here I want to bring that green value down next to the shoreline here. This rocky coast, these trees come right down to the border here. There's that little white building right out to the end there. And over here, I'm going to use a bigger brush now. I'm going to use the same color, mixture of green number 1 and a little bit of ultramarine blue. It's kind of a medium value. So medium value, just a mixture of green. And up here, I'm going to put in some evergreen trees, real large ones. These are the ones that are up closer. So here I'm using the 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm just doing a side stroke here. I'm just stamping, stroke to show the evergreen branches that come out. They don't. There's a lot of air, or you see a lot of sky behind an evergreen in some cases. But I want some space here between some of these branches, so I'm going to start building a pattern here. Little stamping stroke, and there's another tree over here. I want to get that started. Start at the top with a very small stroke, and then as I come down, I get bigger and wider toward the base of the tree. And there's one more here. There's another big old tree. It's going to go outside the painting, so that's okay. But it's the very top of it's going off the top of the painting up here in the far corner. So this bigger tree is closer. It's bigger, so it's closer. Let's get the bigger tree. The rest of them going back a little bit. Now start building some indications of a trunk there. A lot of things in art is to just make it give the thought of what's there. You don't have to paint a lot of detail, but just enough to indicate the meaning of what's there. Okay, let that settle for a while. Okay, all right, I'll let that settle. I'm going to go over here and there's one little section here I want to finish off.
We have a comment. Great tutorial.
Well, I like to teach, and I'm here every Thursday and showing a little demonstration of something. I hope you're getting this out of this. And what I want to do over here now, there's a little coastline. It goes out even further. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mix a little bit of, this is the number 8 round. And let's see, put a little bit of ultramarine blue in with that. I want a darker brown. So I'm mixing up a dark value. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. One of my favorite combinations of colors. It's so variable. I can make a dark gray, a light brown. So it really is a very versatile mixture. All right, so what there's a little landmass back here behind these boats. I want to get those in. A little landmass back here. There's a little inlet coming in here, so that's where that protects the boats from the ocean a lot. If you have a little inlet of some kind, that's why it's just like a little cove. It's like it protects them from the weather. When you have a little inlets like this, these are all over the coastline of up in Maine, little islands and little inlets and so forth. All right, so that's a little landmass back there. And these little boats, I got 3 sailboats I'm going to put in. I'm going to just put a little dark area to show their size, show their shape. And that it could be facing that way. This one's going to have a little angle to it. And this one over here has a similar angle. Okay. Now what I may do there is if you put paint down in there and you think it's a little bit dark, you take a tissue and just tap it, and that'll bring that excess paint off there. I could even use my finger, but I use a little tissue to do that. Okay, then what I'll do is I want to take a little bit of that brown, lighter brown. Now I roll the brush. I'm going to roll the brush and form a point by rolling the brush. And then I'm going to put these masks in. I think what I'll do though, yeah, I can do that. I'll try it with this. We'll put a couple masks in here. Just to indicate this is a sailboat. Double mask. I'll put another one here. And again, this is just you minimize the number of marks you make, but that indicates that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and use the tissue again, and I just lift a little bit of that color up. I just want a indication out there of sailboats out in the so it's just enough to do that. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to fix this this area here. And I think I'll leave that dry. I'm going to go ahead and put the rocks in now. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in some darks, shadows. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of that mixture again of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I don't want it black. I want it just to be a dark brown. To be a dark brown mixture. And you can always test before you paint on your paint. You can always go and test it on a separate piece of paper. Here, that's good. It's a dark brown mixture. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting in some shadows in here, and also a little bit of artist license here. I'm not following the photograph. I'm following what I feel is the best way to break this up. I want this middle ground set of rocks to sit behind this foreground rock mass. So I'm putting this in a little bit more shadow. And the light's coming from here, so it'll be a cast shadow from the rocks there. From the rocks over here in front of it, it's going to have a little bit of cast shadow. And the top of these rocks then are going to have the sun shining on them, so I'm going to leave those a little bit exposed to the light. There's a cast shadow here from this rock. This rock is going to have a cast shadow from another rock. There'll be a small shadow along the base of these rocks here. So what I'm trying to do, I'm going to connect all the darks so that they aren't isolated. I'm trying to have a value here that's running along. And one more cast shadow over here. I got there's a rock coming down this way. I want to do that. Another one out here. Okay. What I'm doing now is I'm following my value plan to a point. my value plan. I'm playing along with the edge of the rocks here. The bottom rock showing the shadows and so forth. So that's what I'm following right now. Okay. And it's not like it's not the same as a photograph. I used a photograph as a reference, but then when I designed my painting plan and my value plan, I'm using it to show a little more sharp, a little more edges, and more shadow that I like to see. In the photograph, these are all blacked out. They were all dark. So I'm giving a little more prominence here in the middle ground, just a little more. Now with a painting like this, it's always good to as you go along, is not overdo, because you can always go back in and add to it after you take a long look at it, and give it a chance to rest before you go any further with it. But you can just go along and make little. Just get the colors blocked in there. Okay. This big rock. I'm going to ignore this big rock over here. So I'm going to put in some dry brush strokes. So what a dry brush stroke is, now a dry brush stroke is you load the brush with paint. You load it with paint, and then you take out a lot of water. On my towel here, I'm going to take out a lot of water. So it's just pure paint, and there's no extra. And then use dry brush strokes to give you texture. So I'm using dry brush strokes on this great big rock up here in the foreground. And I'm turning the brush different ways, sideways, up and down, left and right, up and down this way. Okay. All right. And then down here, yeah, the values, of course, give us the values. It shows us the depth and definition of the landscape. I try to have the dark value in the background. I'm going to go back and put a couple more little places for darks. Now these are some rocks that are down here close to the water. They show a little bit. And let me take that smaller brush again. All I want to do now is just go along the edge. There's an edge. There's a shoreline here, which is running out into the water. And these rocks are wet down here, so they're darker. And up in this area here, I'm just going to take a loaded brush. I'm just tap it around a little bit. These are smaller stones or pebbles that have rolled over in the surf. They've been there for a long time, so these are like petals on the ground. So I'm just taking a brush and I'm just dabbing it on the painting. I'll put a few up here, so light ones. These are little little pebbles. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll put one more layer. I'll use this brush here. Okay, I'm going to put one more layer of darker value up here in the background. I'm going to take a little bit of that Hooker's green, a little bit of ultramarine, make a darker green. I'm going to go back in here now. I'm going into the background now. I'm going to add some more color here and separate the middle ground and the foreground, and the middle ground and the background, excuse me. So now I'm adding more value now to this background. I really want to make that background darker. And that's just what my value study was all about. Planning out where I was going to put the darks, where I was going to put the lights. Now I'll take the smaller brush and I'll make some vertical strokes here to show the individual trees or groups of trees. I'm taking the paint still wet, so I'm just dragging it up into the upper area there to give the indication of a group of trees. Okay. And I left one area here undone, but I'm going to go back in now with just the same mixture. I'm going to go back in here now behind this rock and put in some darker trees back here behind this rock. That's just a bunch of foliage back here. I don't want anything over here to distract from the focal point, so I'm just putting in a darker value over here behind these rocks. And there are more trees, but they're not as well defined as the other ones. And I think I'll take a little bit of that brown, that yellow ochre and burnt sienna, and I think I'll indicate some of these, just a couple of these tree trunks. Just a hint that there's a tree trunk there. I'm not going to define the whole tree trunk all the way up, because some of these are not seen. I don't want to repeat the same pattern, so make sure I got a long and short, long, a couple short ones, whatever. So I don't want to repeat the same pattern. I want to have a different pattern for the even for the tree trunks. Okay. As I said before, you can take the tissue then and go back and lighten up some of those so they're not all the same. Some are darker than others. Give you a little variety. Okay. Let's see. I think what I'll do now, I'm going to take that same, this is the half-inch brush, half-inch flat brush. I'm going to do some more dry strokes here. So I'm going to load this with a little lighter value of just burnt sienna. I'll load the brush. There's very little water in it, very little water, just mostly pigment. And I can tell because when I move the brush through the paint, I can see the brush stroke. That means there's very little water. It's mostly pigment. And that's good. That's what I want. So that's how I control how much water is in the brush. And I can dab it on the towels to make sure. Now I'm going to go in here now and put some dry brushes on this particular rock area. Because all the rocks are the same. There's one, this just happens to be further back than this foreground rock. But they are the same kinds of rock. A little dry brush on this. Okay. All right, and I think the only thing I can try here. I'm going to try something, and I can always fix it. But I'm going to try something. I wanted a reflection from this white building, and I painted over it with the watercolor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lifting technique. I'm going to take the smaller brush, make sure it's clean. I'm rinsing out the brush, make sure it's clean. And I'm going to put a little. It's going to be damp, it's not going to be wet. And I'm going to wet this area. Put a little more water on it. I want to see a little shine. Okay, I see it now. Okay. I want to show a reflection of this white building into the water. Okay, so I wet that surface. Now I take a clean tissue and I'm going to press it in there. Okay, and it didn't show up very much. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take some Chinese white. I'm going to use white paint. because I want a reflection from that building. So this is to go in and make corrections if I paint it over that section. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint. And show a reflection of that building in the water. Okay, that's what I want to see. And what I want to do now, though, is to emphasize that. I'm going to take a little bit of that dark. This is the final touch, two final touches. I'm going to put a dark mark along the shoreline. So I'm going to make a fine point again. Roll the brush through the paint. And I'm going to make the shoreline. I'm going to put the edge, because there's water hitting that rock. So it's going to be darker. They're wet. So I'm going to put them over here. And I'm going to put that shadow right through that area, because I want the reflection and the building to be separate. So by putting the dark color there, I have separated it. That's what I wanted to do. And this goes on out to the end of the point here. Okay. All right, so I have the rocks, the sky, the water, the rocks, and I put three sailboats and this little white building out here. This is the center of interest right here, because your eye is going to be over there because of the contrast of the lights and darks. And I think the last thing I'm going to do, I said two things. That was the house, and the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add some. Take the same brush. This is a number 8 round. And mix a little dark gray, which is Burnt Sienna and Ultramarine blue. Okay. Dark gray. I don't want too dark. I don't want too dark, but I want enough of it to show. Okay. Now I'm going to put some birds in the air. So I'm going to put a bird out here, right here. And I'm going to put another bird over here. And one more down here. Okay. So I've really added some interest down here to this area. I've added the birds flying around. I think your eyes will go attention to that right away. Okay, that concludes today's rocky coastline, and added some birds flying around. Let's go back to my main table. And camera. I'll bring over my light. Okay. All righty. Well, that kind of finishes up the my live broadcast for year 2022. So next week we'll begin a new versions 2023, and I've already got a lot of ideas I want to do for next year. So I hope you all will join me, and will come back and watch me again. I'll be here every Thursday at 2 o'clock, and give me some likes, give me a thumbs up, and also give me some comments on what you thought of today's program, and share them with your friends. And let them know that I'm on every Thursday, and subscribe to my channel. That way you'll get notified of the next broadcast. But it is scheduled for every Thursday at 2 o'clock. Same place, same time.
Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time. That's good. Thank you, Gloria. Let's say, yeah, thank you. I see a comment. Great tutorial. Thank you. I get another thank you. I answered the brush question, which is good. Good questions. And I think questions about brush and paints and paper and different kind of techniques. I mean, I used a dry brush today. I used a hungry brush, a thirsty brush, a thirsty brush. I did some lifting, but the lifting didn't come out very well. I could have scrubbed it out, but I left it alone. Then I put some little white paint on there. But I think if you look at the photograph, I think the painting turned out really good. So
Facebook.
come back to my Facebook panel. Well, I'm also on Facebook, so you can come to Facebook and do it on. You can do a paint along and post your painting on Facebook. I got the links in my, as I mentioned in the beginning, in my website. So we'll see you next week, and Happy New Year's to everyone.